Good day, Chief here reporting for CTT. I'm going to try to wrap up Fort Riley either this week or next week. I still got the video to show about my first sergeant's speech at our homecoming ceremony that we had when we got back from the Gulf War. But it seems like every time I think about I'm done with an area, something else pops up in my aged mind. One thing I forgot to mention when we received our orders is that the policy of the state of Kansas back when my kids were born and us being in the military, they made my spouse the dominant parent, so therefore they would fall under her social security number as far as the government was concerned. So when we got our orders and we looked at them, neither one of us had concurrent travel for our children, the ones that we created too, a daughter and a son. So we inquired. I was able to go back down to orders despite what the first sergeant told me, because there was a discrepancy in our orders. And they said that we will investigate this matter. And as I said, we got our orders, I think at the beginning of December, so therefore we started going to all the appointments, all the places that we needed to visit, not clearing yet, just setting up the major one, of course, which was moving our goods and also shipping one of our vehicles to Hawaii, because we could only ship one. Also inquiring about our pets, because we had 2 dogs at that time, which turned out to be a big headache. I'll talk about that when we finally get to Hawaii. And I've been making a lot of comments that some people might feel are abusive or derogatory or maybe even a little bit prejudiced, but I'm just speaking about what I observed during my time in the military. So I mean, there could be other facts and figures out there to dispel whatever I spout out of my mouth that some people might take offense with. But over the next, while we were out processing Hawaii, as I said, we were also going through a RIF, which was a reduction in force. So therefore, a lot of captains were getting discharged much before their time, and a lot of captains were upset because when we would go to some of our appointments, you would see these captains, and they all looked very upset because, you know, they joined the military. They probably were hoping that they could make the military a career, and finding out now with the reduction in force that now they're no longer needed because there's not enough positions, commands, or assignments to send all these captains to. So here comes one of my derogatory or prejudiced statements. A lot of the captains that I would see starting in Fort Riley and my next duty station in Hawaii, most of the captains I saw, if not all of them, were white. Not saying anything, I'm just saying that they were all white. Some could have been of some other heritage, but the greater share that I saw were white, and we'll even have one captain that I will call out in Hawaii as to why he got discharged, and he was very, very upset. So we finally got our appointments, but the appointment for us moving, since they looked at the size of our house and the size of our family back then, they said, oh, we're going to take 3 days. And we're like, wow. And the 3 days that we got were actually almost the last 3 days that we were in Fort Riley. Because as I said, I think I talked about our awards. I'll have to check my other video. But my spouse actually picked up our awards because the day that we signed out of the company, I do believe, was like our last day of being packed up to be shipped out of there. And what a headache that was. Had no more troubles with the first sergeant. Basically, I got my orders. She was indifferent towards me. And like I said, my new platoon sergeant, he was not much help either. But years later, I got an update on my first sergeant. She got relieved shortly after I left Fort Riley. As I said, her husband, not the father of her children, but her husband was a sergeant in the aviation battalion. And like I said, he was Mr. Attitude, because he would walk in like, you know, I'm the husband of the first sergeant. You got to treat me with. He's just a buck E5, and because he'd always come in, you know, like I said, is my wife here? And we're like, oh, you mean the first sergeant? Is she in? No, the first sergeant is not in. We would not acknowledge him or give him the satisfaction of saying his wife. As I said, she had triplet girls from what I understand, but you saw how she blew up at me. Rather than getting my side of the story and defending her own soldier, no, like I said, she blew up at me, but from what I got later on is that she did that quite a lot with some of her soldiers, and finally the command got wind of it, and they were like, you're gone. You're gone. You can't handle command. You can't handle this situation. I don't know if she got discharged or what, but they just basically said she got relieved and basically ousted out of the battalion. So I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, no concern of mine anymore. As I said also last week, going to school, we're at one of those pinnacle moments where if you went down this path or this path, how your life would have changed. And I'm being quite serious, because going down the path to Hawaii, as you're going to come to find out, my life is going to change drastically. Everybody that says that they loved Hawaii, I absolutely didn't care much for it, and we'll find out why. Yeah, it was nice to go to the beach whenever you could, but it wasn't nice because you couldn't go to another state. You could not drive to another state. You were stuck there. You could take vacation, but I was at a time in my life when I couldn't take any vacations due to the circumstances that I was under my 3 years in Hawaii, and I had a sergeant major begging me to stay. He was going to give me a brand new position. He says, you're going to work here, and I was like, whatever, Sergeant Major. We'll talk more about him too, because there was another crazy command sergeant major that I served under. Trying to wrap this up. Like I said, I'm wrapping up Hawaii, or wrapping up Fort Riley. I'll dig out the video. We'll do the video next week, and then we'll probably get us to Hawaii, hopefully. And then the headache we have of getting our kids to Hawaii, because that's when I began to really appreciate warrant officers, and we'll do that story when we get to Hawaii. So this is Chief signing out. I had learned a lot in Fort Riley. I had a great time. I loved it. I slept in the wet, the cold, the hot, the dusty. I mean, because I went to NTC, so I was in the desert. I went to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, so learned a lot. Learned how personalities actually function under a combat situation, and hopefully I didn't have to do that again, even though I did volunteer. But at that point in my career, I was too high of a rank, because, Chief, there just aren't any positions for your rank. I said I will do a step down to fill a position, but we'll talk about that later on. So I didn't get to do much later in my career, wanting to go down range, as they end up calling it, time and time again. So, Chief signing out. Remember, freedom's not free. Thank a vet, kiss a vet. And some of you people are probably fortunate enough that you can sleep with a vet. So have a good evening. Treat that guy to a nice dinner. Treat that female to a nice dinner. Give her flowers. Give her chocolate. You can give the man flowers and chocolate. I like flowers. I've only received flowers in my life at one time in my life, and I appreciated them very much. And Snickers just got on my lap. You want to say hi to the audience, Snickers? Say hi. You and your crazy mustache. Yeah, so Snickers is here. At least he didn't meow too much, or not at all, did you? So, like I said, Chief signing out. See you next week on time.